Hi everyone, welcome to today's live discussion. Today we'll be talking about scaling mobile games across markets with AI and rewarded user acquisition. We'll be looking at the full path from how rewarded user acquisition works, how AI-powered user game matching can support growth, what studios need before launching rewarded UA campaigns, why performance can differ across markets, and localization affects the whole user acquisition funnel. I'm very happy to welcome our two speakers today. First, we have José Pedroso, account manager at Gamelight. Jose works with mobile game publishers to help them reach high quality users. At Gamelight, Jose has worked with top mobile game developers and managed monthly budgets of over $1 million combined and supported partners across different KPI goals. From Alconost, we have Nadzeya Drahun, Customer Success Manager and former Localization Manager. Nadzeya has spent 7 years at Alconost, including managing localization projects for games and also mentoring localization managers and working closely with clients and project teams. Jose, Nadzeya, thank you very much for joining us. Before we dive in, I would love to pass the floor to each of you for a quick introduction. Jose, could you start and briefly introduce yourself and share with us what kinds of studios, campaigns, and growth challenges do you usually work with at Gamelight?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very much looking forward to talk about rewarded UA. I truly believe that this is one of the best user acquisition ways of doing your marketing mix, and I really believe on the growth of this way of acquiring users. About myself, I live in Lisbon, in Portugal, and I've been working in the mobile industry for seven years, more or less, which is the entire duration of my career. So, pretty much everything that I have done is on mobile. Before joining Gamelight, I used to work in an ad network. So I was very early in contact with games, fintech apps, um, social media apps, like everything you can imagine. And then I joined Gamelight as a BD, where I met like amazing people and talked with people from all over the biggest studios in the world. And then I moved to AM because it's the role that I am the most suited on. Because I believe even though AI is very important, we also have these human sides, even
Yeah.
though our industry is very data driven and everything is in the numbers, it's very important to have that person to person connection. And I think that's one of my favorite points. About my day-to-day activity. I am managing a bunch of mobile advertisers, not only games. Okay, we have streaming platforms, we have fintech platforms, we have games as well, which for Gamelight is our strong suit at the moment. But we work with all kind of partners, and yeah, usually I'm sticking around on like Excel and dashboards, looking at trends, analyzing performance, talking with our own AI tool, brainstorming a little bit on strategies. Then I think our account managers are a little bit of a psychiatrist as well, because we do have to talk with clients and calm them down and try to explain why something is not working currently, but what we are doing to improve it, or sometimes even trying to make people not go a little bit too crazy and just scale CPIs or daily caps because they are seeing campaign working so well. So yeah, that's my day-to-day basis.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting how you raised your day-to-day routines because it made me think about Nadia's how Nadia's experience is actually seems to be very close to yours. Since Nadia, I will of course pass the floor to you to share firsthand. But I'm a bit immediately seeing that you both share the 7 years in the kind of in the industry, and also Nadzeya works closely with clients. So maybe Nadzeya, would you agree that it's also close to the psychology
Yeah,
of work?
yeah, I just wanted to say that it encompasses my just role as well, because I also work closely with her client strategy, but probably it's more about localization, not just in general, and their strategy, because I work closely with our localization teams, making sure that our clients have smoother user their experience with our services. So yeah, it just rings a bell to me a lot. Yeah, and I'm also happy here to sit and talk about localization, especially game localization, which is my favorite, because like when working as a localization project manager, I also like really preferred game projects because they are fun and like a lot of creativity there. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think our combination today will be really interesting because Jose will bring in the main part of the discussion the acquisition, the rewarded UA, the scaling perspective, and Nadia will bring to us the localization and player experience perspective towards the end of our discussion. So thank you guys again for joining us. I think we can jump in and start with the basics. Before we get into the AI and optimization, let's make sure everyone is aligned on the model of rewarded user acquisition. Jose, for anyone less familiar with the concept, how would you explain the model and its difference from the traditional channels?
Yeah. So rewarded UA is actually pretty simple to understand. Everything is in the name, right? You are doing user acquisition, so you are getting people to use your app, whatever app that is, and you are rewarding them for completing certain actions which in your app. On games, it can be, for example, reach level 10. So what happens is people work with rewarded platforms like Gamelight, for example, and then they agree a model. It can be CPE, CPI, CPI, whatever, and they are going to get users, and the users are going to be rewarded for achieving whatever milestone that the advertiser wants them to achieve. Okay, so I think we can think of rewarded UA as an exchange of value between users and the advertisers, and I think that's pretty fair. The advertisers are getting themselves users that are going to play or use their app in the way that is very thoughtful, because they are going to reach the level 10, they are going to start the free trial, they are going to do something. And I think for the user is super fair, right? Because in this crazy economy that we have right now, where everyone is fighting for your time, we have everything happening. Like our mobile phones is a world with so much happening, that with rewarded UA, you are actually going to be rewarded for your time. Okay, so I think that's the main benefit of rewarded UA compared to traditional media. Then we have just an extra difference that I would like to add, that usually on rewarded you do see that is a model that is a little bit more expensive than what you see on Google, Meta, TikTok, whatever. Usually those conversions are a little bit more expensive because the post install engagement is usually higher, and that's why also the price is a little bit higher as well.
Um, so it does sound like the rewarded components creates the real incentive to engage with the game rather than just by users. I'm also curious about one objection that I don't know. Have you faced it, or is it not as popular among the rewarded UI clients? Do studios worry that the users will only come for the reward and then leave? And if yes, how would you respond to that? How much of the truth is there in this fear?
Yes, we come up. We face that claim all the time. It's very prevalent. From my 7 years working in this industry, I've seen a very interesting development of how people engage with us uh, with people from Rewarded. When I started, it was just a scam. When I started, everyone thought that it didn't work. We were scamming. We charged way too much and nothing happened. People would just leave. I think now, thanks to platforms like Gamelight and other gigantic rewarded platforms, I don't think people think it's a scam anymore. I think people believe it's a very valuable UA source. And you can see the bigger MMPs like Singular, AppsFire, Adjust. If you see the biggest, the top networks, now we have apps like Gamelight, like um, Almedia, like Agile, like Misplay, competing with giants like Google, Meta, and everything. So it's getting mainstream. But yeah, and Lisa, the thing that you said is totally a concern. Um, and it's a very varied one because that happens sometimes. There are users that are there only for the reward, and then they stop playing. Um, to solve that, we need to do a lot of testing. Okay, so we need to try a bunch of funnels, and we need to make sure that the rewards, basically, the rewards are there to make sure that the user develops a habit of using your app. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's why the rewards are there. We do incur a risk of stop rewarding or giving too big rewards before the habit is done and the person is usually going to your app just for fun. And when we are not able to build that habit, it seems that the people are only there for the rewards and then they go away. So for that, we have to make sure that we have pretty deep engagement funnel. So we have a lot of rewards during the life cycle of the game or the app. We need to make sure that we do the rewards very carefully, and we also give incentives for people to play that are not only based on the rewards. We see some rewarded channels creating like communities in which like people talk, or you can play different apps to get rewards as well. And then it's also like depending on the quality of the app itself. But yeah, that's a very prevalent concern, and the way we do it is by trying to make sure the engagement events that we have on that specific app are built in order to create an habit on the user. AI is going to be very useful for that.
Oh yeah, actually, AI is a whole layer, and Zika is also a whole layer in how game life works. While we are still on the topic of of keeping the users inside the game, I'm curious whether the rewards posing to this wide concern can actually help users stay within the game because they reduce the early friction of tutorials, onboarding. Is it ever the case? So can this advantage beat the concern of the users leaving the game?
Yes, for sure. I don't know about you, but in my experience, when I was little, right, I used to drop a lot of things because I didn't understand it very well. I think now, or sometimes, when you are watching a movie and the movie starts very slow, and you change
Yeah,
your
definitely.
channel, or you watch another series on Netflix because it's taking some time to kick off. With apps, is the same. If you download an app or install an app and you pay a CPI, it doesn't matter if you pay 10 cents CPI or if you are paying 10 euros. If you are going to install and drop the game straight away, it's net negative.
Yeah.
Anyway. So the rewards are very important for that, to make sure that people keep going after the install. So I think they are very important for that. Also, one of the reasons, and connecting a little bit to what I was telling you earlier, even though rewarded UA has higher CPIs, since we give the rewards, the ROAS tends to be a little bit higher. And in the end of the day, it's not on how much you spend, it's on how much you make, right?
Yeah.
If you spend 10 cents and make 15, it's not as good as spending $10 and making $15, for example. So yeah, the early rewards is very important for the engagement and to have future success. Okay, the battle is always long term.
Thank you for explaining it in more detail, and I'm also looking forward to getting deeper into the topic of measurement because it seems to be a whole separate topic to discuss. For now, I would also ask you about the whole model of Gamelight because the major part of the Gamelight's positioning is AI-powered game recommendation. So from how I understand it, it analyzes user behavior and signals and matches players with the games that the users are more likely to enjoy. But you're better positioned to explain how this works. Maybe you could dive into more detail about how this approach works at Gamelight and how AI is involved in the whole mechanics.
Yeah, of course. I would not say it better than you did. You gave an amazing explanation, but I'm just going to add just a little bit of details. Um, we and every single app owner, we a rewarded platform in the end of the day is a app where users go to get recommended games. Okay, so we have a lot of information. We have a lot of demographic information, and we have a lot of personal information and data per user. Like, yeah, personal per user. Um, Before AI, it was very tricky to connect all these strings, because there was a ton of data all scattered all over the place. I think what made GameLight relevant was that, in my opinion, I believe we were very pioneer on a lot of stuff that we are seeing other rewarded channels doing across the board. And I think that gave us a little bit of a first mover advantage. Um, Basically, everything is very automated in GameLight, right? Um, so when a user creates a profile on our platform, we are going to ask them for their race, their gender, and for them to give us access to their app usage data. And with that information, we are able to create a basic profile. We are able to understand more or less what he or she, whatever it is, but what we are going to be able to understand what they like, if they make purchase on other games, if they are one type of person that plays longer sessions, or they just do a 5 minutes quick gameplay and then they leave and come back later. um, so we are going to have a very detailed and personalized information on this specific user. But then, since we have a pool of users, we are also going to understand how a specific demographic data is going to engage with that specific app. Because I think it's very important. Like, what AI gave us is the possibility of being very, very tailor made, because every single person is different. I might like football, and like pretty much every single male may like football. But why not you, Lisa, also like to play football games as well? And just because you are a woman, the algorithms or the traditional rewarded UA will not show you those games. So this AI basically allows us to not leave anyone behind. If you
Yeah.
like the app, you are going to be shown the app. And then what we have is our algorithm, which is the heartbeat of Gamelight, and the algorithm does everything. It's like cooking the recipe for game-wide success, and it's going to show every specific user the games that it thinks is going to work best for that user. And not only that, is going to understand the profile of that user, if they usually churn early or not when they are using apps, and is going to adjust the rewards and the events we show them accordingly. So
Yeah.
it's very, very, very tailor made.
Oh, this sounds amazing. Also from the user perspective, not only from the studio's perspective, because the advertising is not always annoying when it directly fits your interests, and it's great that the model allows to precisely target your interests. I'm curious. So since this model is so much deeper than sounds so much deeper than traditional targeting, is there any classifications of signals that will help to predict whether the user will engage in the game beyond the traditional targeting by
Mhm.
country, age, gender, interests. What are the additional maybe metrics or
Yeah,
factors that you consider?
yeah, there are. So I think this is a big issue on our industry. Not, I'm being dramatic. It's not a big issue on our industry. What I mean is, because rewarded UA is still relatively new and is still a small a small part of the UA budget overall in the industry. I think it's like a 20 something percent overall.
Mm-hmm.
There are some misconceptions. People usually, or UA managers, sometimes make the mistake of comparing the traditional metrics of ROAS and retention rate and lifetime value that they do with Meta, Google, and TikTok, for example, and they use those same metrics on rewarded. Um, so the metrics are the same. On rewarded is also important the ROAS, the retention rate, lifetime value, RPU. The metrics are exactly the same. The difference is the way we analyze them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Usually, what people try to do on rewarded is being very aggressive in the beginning. A little bit like they do on Google. You have to make your money back as fast as possible, and that's good for for hyper casual games, for some idle games that also good as well. But from some casual or strategy mobile games, for example, that have a CPI of $10 or $12, trying to be very aggressive on the early rollers is not as relevant and can lead to mistakes in pausing and optimizing campaigns. Um, I think I'm trying to answering your question without going too over the place. But basically, the most important metrics are ROAS, retention rate, and I would say lifetime value.
Yeah.
But the way people are looking into those metrics overall is still not ideal. People need to understand that rewarded UA is a different type of UA, so it needs to be it needs their own KPIs basically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You also mentioned that you also mentioned different genres. Is it Is it correct to say that some games would benefit more from the rewarded UI, and some would benefit less? And what are the genres that you would say would be best suited for this model?
Yeah. I would not say exactly benefit, but we
Mm-hmm.
are in fact having more success with some titles than others.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the ones I'm seeing more success is titles that are more like match three style.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and usually around December, like Q4, usually around Q4, social casinos, not like actual real money casinos, but social casinos also seem to work pretty well. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing a resurgence on casual. Casual is starting to ramp up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, thank you. We also, I think we covered that it's very important to consider the player experience post the campaign, post the rewarded campaign. So first we match the right users to the game, but we also give the right incentives after the install, and the game itself also needs to be ready to produce the signals. Since it's important to define the campaign readiness, Jose, what would you say a well-prepared mobile game must look like before launching the rewarded UA campaign? What is the readiness checklist for it?
Yeah, I would say first of all, you need to have your MMP well identified, whatever MMP you are going to use. It would be to have it well chosen and having I would say always to all advertisers, add as many events as you can to your MMP on your SDK.
Yeah.
Even if you don't use the events, I don't know, it can be useful in the future. But
Mhm.
then, if you want to try rewarded campaigns, having the most events possible or having as many events as possible is the best way forward. They don't need to have any accurate information because, of course, things change over time, and as results are coming, um, goals change as well. But they need to have an understanding, a clear understanding of what event progression they want to target. Let's say
Mhm.
you have a game that you can unlock characters, you can unlock new maps, you can complete your level, you can do side quests, whatever. So inside your game, you have several ways of playing the game. So it's a very free game. This would be an
Yeah.
amazing game, very complete game. You have to have a very good understanding of where your bread and butter is. Okay, so if you want people just playing your game, like in general, you are probably going to do a complete level 10, complete level 20, complete level
Mhm.
30, whatever. So or reach character level 1, reach character level 2. So something that rewards you, or something that go alongside your gameplay.
Mhm.
But let's say you want, that you have something that makes you more money. For example, you are a social casino and you want people to play a specific slot,
Yeah.
or a specific game. You want people to play poker because you know that on your social casino app, poker is the game that is bringing you the more revenue.
Mhm.
You have to at least have that intention, and give your rewarded partner milestones, so events, so we can reward the user, events that are going to lead them on that path, because that is also going to improve the lifetime value of that specific user, improving your ROAS and stuff like that. So I'd say it's very important for you to have as many events as you can, and then having an idea of what progression funnel you want to pursue.
Mhm.
And just to finish this answer, sorry,
Yeah.
if your game makes most of its money through purchase, you have to have your purchase event well defined. If it's 100% IAP, you have to have a purchase event that is triggering correctly to
Mhm.
make sure that we are tracking ROAS properly.
Mhm.
And if
Mhm.
you make most of your money through ads, you have to add events that trigger when people watch ads, of course. Pro tip: at Gamelight, we find it very important to reward people for watching ads.
Mhm. Mhm. So events seem to be very important. And are there any? Is there like a rating, a top list of events that would be typically more meaningful for setting up than the others, or is it always the case by case situation?
It's case per case, more or less, but I think it's more important to look at the conversion rate of the events.
Mhm.
Rewarded platforms without rewards are useless. People that use these platforms, and the reason these platforms are growing is because the user base is getting rewarded for
Mhm.
playing or for achieving milestones within specific apps. So we need to
Mhm.
have rewards, and for that we need to have events.
Yeah.
um, and usually there is a conversion rate sequence, let's say, that works better. So it's important to have like the first event have at least like 90% conversion rate, the second one having at least like 81, the third
Mhm.
one 70 something. So there is a range where people are more or less expecting to receive rewards, and it's good to fulfill those expectations. If like you play a game but you only get a reward after playing the game for 3 days, you are not
Mhm.
going to enjoy the game, and you are going to feel like it's a broken promise, and you are going to uninstall the game.
Mhm. Mhm. And optimization also seems very important to campaigns. So, do you think it can be risky to optimize around for the first one or two early events? And what would you say typically slows the optimization down and can get in the way of it?
Mhm. I think optimizations are mandatory, but can need to be done with a little bit of careful.
Yeah.
Um, what we do at Gamelight is that we wait for around 1,000 installs
Hmm.
before starting doing optimizations. Like I was telling you, sometimes people use traditional UA metrics on rewarded, and then can leave us to what you were saying, optimizing on the early days a little bit too soon. So it's good to have like 1,000 installs usually is enough, and at least one cohorted day 7 meterated data to understand where people usually get to it, and then we
Hmm.
can start having information of retention rate, ROAS, and start optimizing after that.
Okay. Also, I think this ties beautiful to the next section of scaling and international growth, because once the campaign is working well, the next question may be how and where to grow. And of course, global growth may not always be one campaign. So I'd love to bring us all on the international side here. When a campaign run across several geographies, do you see that something usually differs most from market to market from your perspective?
Yes, it is very different from market to market in my perspective. Um, in rewarded UA, at least my experience, and it was the same in incentivized before, creatives maybe still don't play as big of a role as they should. I think that we are also learning and growing. Um, but we do see a lot of, like, there are several campaigns that might perform like amazingly in Spanish speaking countries and not
Yeah.
as good on German speaking countries, or and then they perform like in the middle on English speaking countries like UK,
Hmm.
US, Australia. um, so yeah, we I do see a lot of difference between geo to geo. Of course, there are several factors that also impact that. For example, usually US is a more expensive market because it's more saturated, of course. Um, and so sometimes people, for example, they launch a campaign in France, and they just assume that they just don't need to pay as much. So maybe sometimes that is not as much as on the geography, but on the bid.
Yeah.
But it surely has an impact. Also about scaling, I also wanted to say something that usually people complain about rewarded, and is also a valid claim. But let's put all the cards on the table, right? It's not as easy to scale on rewarded as it is to scale on Google, Meta, and now AppLovin. Like right now, AppLovin is going crazy with the budgets. On rewarded is still not as easy to scale that much, but I think people should first of all expect rewarded to scale because
Yeah.
it's breaking into the mainstream more and more. So that means
Hmm.
that there is going to be more and more scale because more people are going to use it. And also, I think like a lot of people are using it as um, a premium spot of their marketing mix. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
but sometimes when you are kept on the US, like there is something as like increasing your CPI too much. So for me, for
Yeah.
example, we are on a CPI, a casual game, not any specific game, but just a random example. You are spending like $5 CPI, and you are getting like 1K of daily cap. So that would be 200 installs. Let's use for this example 200 installs
Hmm.
and 5K CPI. So you are spending around 1K per day, and then you increase your CPI for $6, and you only get like 20 more installs. Then you increase to $7. In my opinion, instead of doing that and killing your performance because you are going with a CPI that is too high for that market, it's better to explore another market. So I try to do that with my clients when I see that instead of trying to suck every single dollar of them and increasing CPI, CPI, CPI just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
I would much rather having them increase launching a new market with
Hmm.
even uh, uh, the bid can be higher or lower. It depends on the case, but usually when we start to feel that the market is stagnating for now, I try to move them to a new market, and then we have two campaigns spending 1K instead of one campaign spending 1.5, for example. Diversification is very important.
Oh, okay. So, would you say there is a certain set of metrics that you look into when you make a decision on testing another market? So, I hear you mentioned CPI and installs. Maybe there are other also metrics that you usually dive into before deciding, or is it also more like the case by case basis where for each campaign, different set of metrics would
Yeah.
tell us that it's high time to test another geo?
Mhm. Here, to be honest with you, I use mainly two metrics, which are we have our internal AI at Gamelight, and sometimes I use it for tips. But usually, since I've been working here for like year in the industry, I've been
Yeah.
working in Gamelight for 3 years and the industry for another like 4 years. Usually, I have a feeling on what is going to work on a specific game. Just because I've already worked with so many apps that it's a little bit biased, to be honest. Which
Oh,
I hope
it
is not
totally
the
makes
wrong
sense.
answer, but yeah, here I have an understanding of what could happen.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely makes sense. Um, okay, so since we are covering the markets, I would also ask when the studio is open to testing markets. They probably advising you or your colleagues at Gamelight. How would you say? How should studios decide which markets? Languages and markets to test first, and do genre and monetization model play any role here in this choice?
What was the last question? Sorry.
Do genre and monetization model play any role in
Mm.
how would you decide which market
Oh,
to test? Yeah.
yes, it does. It does affect. So there are there is not a right answer here. This is a lot of stuff is happening at the same time at all times. So it depends. Sometimes it's me suggesting. Sometimes it's them uh, like proactively wanting to scale. Most of the time is me suggesting because account manager. I have to try to scale the activities, stuff like that. Um, so usually there are I first of all I have to understand my clients and getting a feel on who they are, like in terms of where their company is right now. For example, if I am talking with someone that works on one of the biggest mobile developers, they have a very good understanding of where they should go next because they have probably done it before with other partners. So when I'm working with bigger in terms of they are more well known or they have a bigger game or they are older, whatever. Sometimes I let them take a little bit of the wheel and I just try to poke them. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. And then they usually, when they feel that the timing is right, they tell me what they want. When I feel that I'm working with a slightly newer or less experienced partner, that they are now trying rewarded, or they don't have as big of a budget, so we have to be a little bit more careful. Um, when that happens, I usually go around my platform, look for examples, try to benchmark
Yeah.
everything, and give them the information. And usually, when that happens, I'm the one making the recommendation.
Okay, okay. If we were to sum up, the decision-making process is both the combination of the data and metrics you look into and the professional gut feeling, like the professional intuition that is accumulated over the years
Yeah.
of experience in the field, and also
Yes.
the case-by-case basis of the client.
Yes,
Okay,
and I forgot to tell you, sorry, because you were
yeah,
talking about the monetization. That's also very important. If Because like there are countries that make less money on ads, for example, because their
yeah.
currency is not as strong or something like that. So that is very important. And I think that's one of the reasons, for example, Japan and Korea have been pretty solid markets for Gamelight specifically.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a little bit more tricky to, since we work on CPI, and that's, let's say you have a $2 or $3 CPI on a game that is 100% the IAA, so they make 100% of their money through ads. It's way
Yeah.
more difficult to make your $2 back if you are promoting on Mexico than it is if you are promoting on the US. So that's also important to take into consideration.
Since you mentioned Japan and Korea as some of the strong performing markets, I'm curious whether you have a certain opinion on what makes those markets particularly interesting. So you see a lot of examples where the Japan and Korea are performing well for clients. Is there any observation from your side on what can be the case here?
Yeah, I think it's very cultural. I think their culture and their traditions, and you can see with a lot of things, it's like they are very into anime and like those sort of stuff. And I think their market is way more maturated, and they are more willing to try games that feel appealing, to them, like, and
Yeah.
they are not shy to spend money inside their games. And I think that's also market maturity. For example, in Portugal, um, a lot of my friends, they still don't make in-app purchases, but they are starting to get there with games like Pokemon. Games are very important for people to
Yeah.
adopt apps in general. Like pretty much everything starts with games, and Pokemon in this case, for example, which is like massive in Japan and in the world, but it
Yeah.
came from Japan. So that's also why I'm giving that example. You had first Pokemon Go, and now Pokemon Pocket TCG. And my friends, we are like around 30 years old, all of us. They are now making their first IEPs, purchasing digital Pokemon
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
packs. No, so I think that maturity from South Korea and Japan, because they have been into these type of apps before, um, their market maturity is why, and the way we promote, there was just a product market fit. That's why we had some good success on Korea and Japan.
That's really interesting. Whenever Japan and Korea comes up in our LinkedIn live discussions, and it happens to come up really often,
Yeah.
the common opinion is that this is a very interesting market, and these are very interesting markets. They are very cultural and distinctive. I would also love to bring Nadzeya in here, because Nadzeya, as you worked with game localization projects, have you also seen the distinctions and any curious observations about the very particular challenges of the South Korea market and the Japan market?
I can't say like I can recollect any like particular just examples, but I can definitely say that like as I also been hearing what Jose was talking about, there are also some like interesting techniques for localization, how you can also try to see what markets would fit into your strategy. For example, there's such a good practice as the soft launch, when you can just try some definite market, specific market which you expect to be like the best selling market for you, and just see how this game particular is, for example, perceived at that market. And if it's a success for that market, then you can decide later that okay, we can localize and expand into other markets. And for example, and it also what's important and interesting here, that you can just do with localization for the soft launch, not just like for the with the whole localization of the whole game. For example, you can also choose some just a very of high importance just parts that you can just start with in order to understand. Because I had experience, like for example, when also we were testing a Spanish Mexican market with one game, and we did a soft launch, and the client decided to localize the whole game, and then unfortunately it was just not working, and they invested money right into localization, and they, in order to just to understand that, like, that they had to unfortunately cancel the project. So like, yeah, so there are also different techniques which you can use in order to try localization, and of course you can start and there are different metrics which you can also track in order to understand what markets you can go into. And I would say that it's not just business data, but also production reality, because business data, of course, you can also check your competitors and see at what markets their games are popular, which are similar to your market. And but also what you need to really to consider is what's the complexity of your potential languages, because really not all the languages have the same structure, and some languages need more UI space, fonts, etc. So you really need to be careful when going into those markets, because you need to understand that you need to have like a proper internationalization before going into those markets. So yeah, also there are different techniques how you can test what markets can be a success for you, and that's really good.
It's really important how that you mentioned the internationalization for the assets. What would you say are the most tricky markets for UA creatives to get into, in terms of like the broken UI, the broken strings, and so
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, there are some specific markets which are very tricky, and of course, these are Spanish, Russian, German, right? So, because a lot of because of the language structure, it's grammar, and unfortunately, sometimes the clients prefer to do some hard-coded strings, and then you just need to put much more effort after you have the final build in order to make these strings translatable, because for those markets really you just can't follow just standard English rules. It's impossible. And then afterwards, you either just do it in the beginning, or later on you would just need to put a lot of LQA and etc. in order to make this usable, but not usable, because how can we say about games specifically usable or technically appropriate? Because for games it's important that the game is as entertaining and as in their source language. So all these things are really important.
So the bottom line here is that internationalization is cost saving, essentially. So because LKA later on, when the issues arise, is much
okay. And you need to just to rebuild your game, your code, to break your code and you rebuild it again, because I also had such an experience when we did probably it was Spanish, but I can't say definitely, but I think it was Spanish when we did Spanish, and just the client understood that okay, now I need to redo it, because if I want to localize in other languages, I would need to eliminate this issue just from the very beginning. And they just did this pause and just took this pause to just rebuild it, and again spend more money to what seems as already done. So
it sounds really important now that I think more and more clients are budget conscious with AI entering the picture. So it's a very important note to consider. I'm also curious whether, José, you have seen similar issues with international campaigns, the similar ones to the ones that Nadzeya outlined, like some markets would be performing worse because of some broken UI elements after translation, or is it not the case in your work?
I think it's not as severe as with Nadia. Sorry if I butter your name. It was not my intention. But I think it's not as severe because we have the rewards, right? So sometimes people, if they see a reach level 10, they reach level 10. I think it's a little bit more concerning if it's like utility apps.
Yeah.
If it's like started free trial, but they don't understand what they are doing, it's going to go bad. But it is not as big of a problem, to be honest.
So, bouncing back to Nadzeya's point that also Nadzeya you raised about prioritizing the assets and languages. What would you say is, so you mentioned there is a lot of data, was business and production data. What would you say is the checklist of metrics you could look into to prioritize the languages and assets to make the decision about localization?
Yeah, of course you can check. These include wish list data, organic traffic, then store conversion by country. So like as also did I mention like the results of soft launch can also be like a good signal what you should do next. So yeah, these metrics. A good way to check and to understand like what you would need to do next.
Okay.
And
Also,
you can also, by the way, yeah. So sorry. By the way, you can also just it's also like similar to what Jose was speaking earlier. So like you can also prioritize what content you are translating, and of course, like if we check first, you would need check marketing and onboarding content because like for marketing, it's evident. Like if you don't, if marketing localization seems off, then of course you won't have players users, right? And it's the same about onboarding. If you just players go into the game and they just don't understand what they need to do, they would just simply skip this game without even understanding its like its value. So yeah, so like really you can also try to check and prioritize what type of content you need to localize first. And yeah, and also adding about live ops, that this is also really like for localization. Live ops are really, because I had a client, they regularly did live ops for some special occasions, and really with the help of live ops, they were able to get billions like of installs worldwide, because like we know that during these holiday periods, people are really excited, and like having special live ops for these holidays really brings good value.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it's interesting that there are what you mentioned about onboarding. We can sum up there are like two drivers of simplifying player experience. So on the one hand, it's very important to have the localized experience, and on the other hand, the rewarded UA also helps to get through the onboarding more smoothly. So this is, I guess, one of the common grounds that connect these two directions, these two works. Okay, so my next question also regarding localization, since this can be very important in reaching new markets through the campaigns. What makes you mentioned that certain content makes localization especially important, and when you localize things like tasks, reward instructions, event screens, push notifications, what can make this text particularly sensitive? So where do you see the friction coming if the user is going through the unlocalized or poorly localized product, not product, but maybe the offer, the push notification, and so on?
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, like, yeah, these are, first of all, these are important, then some monetization, also functional, because also, obviously, this is very important. But, from mobile games, yes, there are some, you can just go localizing some, like, these small parts, and that's okay. But for narrative-heavy games, when everything is really important, like the whole story, all the characters are really like they're important, and like you can just simply like make some prioritization, but you should understand like the impact has like a much more requires much more time to measure this impact from that localization. So yeah, but again, in terms of localizing on any parts of UI, what's important here is the way how you can interact with the development team, because this is also part of internationalization, when you need to prepare everything clearly in terms of like string IDs, the way you just keep variables, placeholders. So like all those parts are really like impact localization, and any like bishops which you eventually may have just also have roots in
Yeah.
this pre-prototype production stage. So yeah.
It's a very important topic to cover, because earlier we discussed with José the importance of campaign readiness and the game readiness for the campaigns. My question to you, Nadia, would be also like similar. What would you say is like the checklist of what developers need to prepare before they are handing a game down to the localization team?
Mhm. Well, of course, many companies think they can just give you strings and that's it, and you can just go ahead and do. But again, the main thing which you need to think here is that the game should be the same entertaining as in the source, and in order to do that, you really need to provide as many assets to translators as you can, and they may include like game cast, in order, so the translators can check it and understand how those characters of game, how they speak and how they need to translate, because otherwise it just might be boring and not interesting. And of course, style guides, any rules that you, if some games have like a really special rules about plurals and gender, so like you also need to be very specific and prepare some style guides and rules of how translators should treat those. So yeah, and of course glossaries, some basic things which we do with every project. So really this is any assets, additional assets you can do, you can prepare for the localization team. It will just make a better effect on the localization, and everything is really important, because if translators, if they don't have these contexts, they just need to guess how to translate, and if they are guessing, then the effect may be very unexpected. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, we the context in localization seems to be very important, and it also cuts costs. I would say you're right, because the less guessing, the less back and forth. It means less mistakes
Yeah.
And better results right away. Okay, I would, now that we're nearing the back of our discussion, I would connect our discussion back to the topic of measurement in the rewarded UA. Because we covered it a little bit, but to close off our discussion with some practical lists, I would ask you, Jose, so which KPIs should matter most when we are evaluating rewarded UA campaigns?
Mhm. So I would say the ROAS, mainly day 1, day 7, and day 30, are very important. And depending on the game, I would also add there the day 60. Okay. Then I would mirror that on retention rate, but I think on retention rate for day 60 is not as important, because it is probably going to be very close to zero, if
Yeah.
not zero. Um, the even there are wells that can be found, but yeah. So I would say those are most important, and then the lifetime value
Yeah.
of the user.
Okay.
Right, the lifetime value, um, RPU. Those I think are the most important. But for Gamelight specifically, if you want to know,
Yeah.
is the gross ROAS goals, not net, gross.
What is it again?
Uh, for Gamelight specifically, the gross ROAS goals are very important.
Yeah. Okay, okay. And if we push to the localization side, I would frame it around diagnosing. If a market is underperforming, what localization issues, localization related issues, would you check first, Nadia, to before assuming that the market is weak rather than the product has flaws that needs to be fixed?
Mhm. I'd say just you would need to check our conversion rate. That's the most important conversion rate. How long players stay, and yeah, so like most probably almost like the same thing.
Okay, and another express section to close off is let's look ahead into the future. So since Gamelight is very strongly positioned around AI and automation, I would ask José, where do you see AI and automation changing the landscape of your industry in the next few years, and where would you say some parts of UA will become more automated versus what will still require human judgment?
Mm. Uh, I think we are in one of those industries, mainly us, that is very like pretty much everything can be automated.
Yeah.
Um, there are going to be. I think this is my prediction for the future. I think we are going to start seeing rewarded channels, getting like specialized in some stuff. Right now, I think they are like everyone does more or less the same.
Mhm.
I think we are going to start seeing like rewarded channels that are a little bit different, and people are going to start engaging with a channel that is more, I don't know, like one is more for sports or is
Yeah.
more tech savvy with a lot of pop-ups and stuff. Other is maybe a little more like on a community based where people interact with each other. So I think we are going to see rewarded channels getting a little bit more specialized.
Mhm.
I think it's not only going to be enough to give people rewards. I think we are going to need to do what Gamelight is doing, which is going right at the target. Like being very custom, very tailor made. Um, and regarding Gamelight, I think we are still going to be very important, most of all for the relationship.
Yeah.
I think in the end of the day, we are people doing business with people, and we are going to try to understand people behavior. I don't know. I think AI is awesome, but I think there is still that little human component
Yeah,
which
definitely.
the machine is not able to understand. Like that little human edge. And I think even in data, we can apply that different, like the way we write the description of the event, the way we do a spin on a different thing. I think like everything that is very very data driven is going to be automated. I think the game changing will be customization, so different rewarded channels that will fit different people, and then that small human taste that can be game changer.
It looks like you're uniquely positioned as an AM to be at the forefront of the relationship-driven function, like as a human. But you're also in the industry where you can see the AI advancing and seeing how it automates the data-driven tasks. Um, let's hope that your prediction for the future about the specialization of the industry will come true. And I will also pass the floor to Nadzeya. Is also curious to hear your perspective on where is this balance between human touch, this invisible human component in a translation that makes it different from the machine translation.
Yeah, but of course you can rely on AI, and you can teach AI, just also feed it as many assets as you want to, but still, like, the final word, I also believe should stay on human, because humans only can really check how it resonates, especially if we are talking about some really high priority parts of the content. Yeah, there might be some, like, I don't know, some the FAQ, help center, like, translation, so where you can really, the voice of your message really doesn't make that much difference. But in case if it's really sensitive, then I believe it's still on human to decide and have the final word. So
I think this is a very inspirational final thought for our today's discussion. Thank you so much, Jose and Nadzeya. I really hope that this conversation will be useful for anyone that is working with international embroidered UA campaigns. Please feel free, if you found this useful, feel free to share the recording with your colleagues, and feel free. I would even strongly encourage you to follow our amazing guests, Nadzeya and Jose, to learn more about mobile growth, UA localization. The recording will be available through the same link that you use for this LinkedIn events. So anyone can come back to it later and share it with the team. So thank you again, Nadzeya and Jose, and thank you to everyone for joining us.
thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye. See you soon.
Bye.